The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Plainville Town Council's regular meeting. Today is Monday, July 19th, 2021. It's 7 p.m. And if you will, I'll ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Tompkins will lead us in that.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They voted. I know. Didn't even tell me.
Okay. Before we begin, I would just like to take a moment to express my personal condolences to the families of the young Plainville students who met with a tragic accident along the Farmington River the past few days. Certainly, loss of life is never okay, but when young people have such unexpected, tragic endings, it certainly impacts the whole community. So I would like to send off to the entire Plainville school system, those families that were friends of the young boys, and of course, nonetheless, to their families. I just want to express my sympathy and condolences for the terrible tragedy that occurred this past week in Farmington. Thank you. All right, moving along with our agenda, we do not have any presentations at this point, nor do we have a public hearing. So I'll ask for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 21st, 2021, special and regular meeting.
Madam Chair, second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Announcements and reports. Do we have any announcements and reports this evening? Rosemary? No?
Sorry.
You're usually our very active reporter. Okay, all right, then we'll move along from that piece and on to appointments and resignations. This evening we have a police officer appointment, so may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to appoint Kelsey O'Donnell to the position of police officer effective August 4th, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Before we go ahead and make this finalized, I would like to ask our Lieutenant Peterson if he would step to the podium. And I know he has a few words he'd like to tell us about our new police officer, Kelsey, soon to be our new police officer, Kelsey.
Good evening. Thank you. Kelsey O'Donnell, 29 years old. Push the button on you.
Now you're on.
Start over. Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Tonight we have Kelsey O'Donnell with us and her husband, John. Kelsey is 29 years old, grew up in Waterbury. After high school, she attended Springfield College, where she received a bachelor's degree. After a short stint in human services, she decided to become a police officer. She currently has family that are police officers. She has been with the Waterbury Police Department for the past 3 years. Her and her husband currently reside in Bristol with their 2 dogs. Now, Kelsey, being a certified police officer and having 3 years of experience, we will be able to get her on the road a much quicker time with a brief period on field training. This will be a big savings to the town and comes at a good time as we are in need of police officers. After interviewing and speaking with Kelsey, I believe she will be a good fit and an asset for our police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I have Kelsey's badge, so I'll come on down and hand it off, and I believe her husband is going to do the honors of pinning the badge, so I'll be right there. Kelsey, congratulations on being selected as our next police officer in Plainville. This is certainly a challenging position anywhere police officers are functioning. The atmosphere across the country is challenging for police officers, but we in Plainville, I believe, have an outstanding team. I know you will be very successful, and we're extremely happy that you're going to be with us and very proud that you've decided to come to Plainville. So with that, well, congratulations. Thank you. And I have your badge, but I will let your husband do the honors of pinning. So there you go. Thank you. Don't stick her.
Yeah, we'll try not to.
No.
Just like
They're not very sharp, are they?
Yeah, we'll get it. Now we gotta get it through the other side.
Oh, good job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we have to vote. I know. Yeah. Now that we got through the ceremonial part, we do need to vote on this motion, so all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, motion carries. Item number 2, Advisory and Recreation Board.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
motion to ratify the town manager's acceptance of Donna Martin's resignation from the Advisory, Recreation, and Park Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? I do know Donna has been involved in the Recreation and Park Board for a number of years, and we certainly appreciate her service. And if we could send a letter of acknowledgement, Robert, and thank her for all that time she spent, that would be nice.
Will do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to ratify the town manager's acceptance of William Bolger's resignation from the Advisory, Recreation, and Park Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and William as well has spent many years on the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. He's he's been with us through a lot of changes and improvements in our park and recreation facilities and programs. So again, if we could acknowledge his contribution. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number C.
Motion to ratify the town manager's appointment of Danielle Angelillo, 136 Tomlinson Avenue, to the Advisory, Recreation, and Park Board for the term ending May 1st, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, item number 3.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Okay, a motion to reappoint Susan DeRocher to the Committee on Aging for the term ending August 1st, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
A motion to reappoint Mary McBain to the Committee on Aging for the term ending August 1st, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam C?
ahead.
Madam Chair, for 3C. Okay, reappoint Brenda Tella to the Committee on Aging for the term ending August 1st, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Rosemary. Item number 4.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
motion to appoint Jonathan Camacho, 379 Emmett Street, Bristol, as a probationary firefighter to the Plainville Fire Department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Although Mr. Camacho is a Bristol resident, can you speak to the ordinance?
Sure.
I know we have a specific language about appointments for people outside of
The
Plainville.
fire ordinance allows for someone living outside of town but within 3 miles of the firehouse to be a Plainville firefighter, and I believe it's the chief's discretion if he wants to extend that to 5 miles.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, do we have any other appointments? I think we have a few more that aren't on our list, but we'll take care of those tonight also.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to reappoint Elmer Saucier and Glenn Pennant to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a period of 1/2/21 to 1/2/25.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to reappoint Richard Ireland to the Recycling and Solid Waste Commission, effective 2/1/21 to 2/1/23.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to reappoint Jennifer Bardis Early to the Capital Region Council of Governments and Planning Commission for a period of 1/2/21 to 12/31/21.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Are there any other appointments tonight?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
motion to appoint Patricia LeBeau and David Garuski to Inland Wetlands for the term beginning January 7th, 2021, ending January 7th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Are there any other appointments or reappointments for this evening, or are we all set with that? Okay, great. Thank you for your help with that. Moving along, the Board of Education, we do not have a report. Attorney Mastriani, do you have anything for us this evening?
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening. Okay.
I think it's important to make a brief statement regarding the Fasold lawsuits, given some of the statements by individuals made at previous town council meetings, as well as recent articles that were in the Hartford Courant and New Britain Herald. As most of you are aware, the town of Plainville has been named as a defendant in several companion lawsuits filed by the victims of Kyle Fasold. The particular allegations that have been made against the town of Plainville are and will continue to be vehemently denied. While the town and the town council share in the public's outrage regarding these allegations and understands that many people want details as to what transpired, to protect the confidentiality of these victims, and because this is a pending litigation matter, I've instructed all town officials not to make any public comments regarding this case. And this will be the only statement the town of Plainville will be making on these lawsuits. That was it.
Thank you. Okay. Report of the town manager, Mr. Lee.
Yes,
You have a lot to report.
the first of which is to review the conceptual plans for the Whiting Street project. John Bossy, Director of Technical Services, is here this evening to give a presentation of the proposed preliminary sketch of the improvements to be made to Whiting Street next summer. The reconstruction and paving of the road will be from Broad Street to East Street, or Route 10. The project includes the replacement of drainage pipes, catch basin improvements, removal of the old trolley tracks, and the repaving of the road. The town is anticipating that a lot SIP grant will be awarded in the amount of $2,324,400 to pay for the improvements from Broad Street to Fairview Avenue. Town road bonds will be used to mill and pave from Fairview to East Street. The estimated cost of that portion is $350,000. The state and CROG requires towns to consider what they call complete streets concepts when performing a major road project. Complete streets means ensuring all modes of transportation are considered in the planning and design of our transportation network. And with your permission, I'd like to ask John to step forward and give a relatively brief PowerPoint presentation on preliminary plans for improvements to the street.
Great,
And
thank
certainly be
you.
available to answer questions or receive comments.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm here to discuss what changes we're proposing to incorporate complete street concepts on Whiting Street. Basically, right now, the street provides access for pedestrians and motor vehicles. We were asked by CROG to look into whether or not we could incorporate bicycle facilities. So as a result of that, we reviewed the widths of the road, the existing roadway, and it was deemed that if parking was restricted on that roadway, that bicycle lanes in both directions could be incorporated into the design. The restrictions would be no parking at all on the west side of the road, and on the east side of the road, parking would be only permitted from Newton Avenue towards the intersection, and it would be stopped generally about 300 feet from the intersection. That would allow us to put in bike lanes going in each direction on the appropriate side. If you can skip to the next slide, please. This slide right here is basically a computer-generated picture clip off the internet in regards to how bike lanes would be incorporated into a street that have parking on one side only. You can see that the upper side, you have parking against the curb, then you have a bike lane, then the travel lane, a travel lane, and then the bike lane. If you go to the next slide, it's very similar. This is the configuration as you approach a signalized intersection. You can see that if you were visualizing Wyden Street as you're traveling northbound and you're approaching Broad Street, there's 2 lanes at that intersection at the light. And this would be kind of an incorporation of how we would translate the bike lane into an appropriate position at the traffic signal. So you would have bicyclists in the kind of in the middle of the roads. I don't know if you've seen that before, but that's generally how they would make that left-hand turn so that they could be in an appropriate spot. If you can go to the next slide, this one doesn't really reflect much. It's kind of small, but basically it's a slide showing how it would be configured. Now, we're proposing to configure it in this fashion. We're proposing to be 30 inches off the curb on both sides, and the reason for that is bicyclists do not like to run over catch basins. And catch basins about 30 inches, so we want to pull them off the curb so that they're not jarring out into the road when they come up to a catch basin. Then we'd have a bike lane. The bike lane would be about 5 feet wide, and then we would create a separation difference between the bike lane and the travel lane of about 30 inches. Then we'd have 11-foot travel lane, which is a standard travel width in the state of Connecticut. On the other side of the center line, we'd have a travel lane at 11 feet. We'd have the buffer at 30 inches. We'd have a bike lane. Then we would have another buffer so that when the car door opens from a parked car, it doesn't get the bicyclists. And then we would have a 7-foot parking lane. If you go to the next slide. Here again, the slide is pretty hard to see, but basically it's that happens to be from Broad Street just beyond Newton. You can't see it, but we showed how we would veer out into the travel lane to catch the left-hand turn. And the next slide is just a continuation of this. This goes to the end of the LASIP program, which is the project that we're currently working on. That would be the totally reconstructed section. Beyond that, we would just duplicate that down to East Street, and we would have to figure out at East Street some way of manipulating the bike lanes so that we can address the light in a safe manner. But the emphasis of tonight's discussion is we at engineering are requesting that on-street parking be restricted. On-street parking would be forbidden on the west side the entire length. So from Broad Street to East Street, there would be no parking on the road. And then on the east side of the road, we're requesting permission to only have parking between Newton Avenue and about 300 feet from Broad Street, and the rest would be restricted. I don't know if there's any questions. Yes.
I have a question, John. Looking at this rendering of the bike lane that is coming along, we're approaching Broad Street,
Yeah.
you know, and then the bike lane goes into its own center lane, if you will. And so do you think, is that safe? I just have a little worry about that. I mean, I would expect you wouldn't propose anything that would be unsafe, but is this something that has been done elsewhere? And it looks to me a little bit confusing for drivers and for bikers, but perhaps bicyclists are familiar with this kind of layout, so.
Well, before you answer that, John, this is very preliminary. This is going to go through a lot of review at both the state level and the regional level.
Yeah.
So this is really just a conceptual plan, and but I'll let John answer. But I'm just saying that what you see here is just a concept. It's not
Okay.
necessarily anywhere near what the final version
Where it
look
may
like.
end up?
Yes.
Okay, that's my question. It looks very odd and potentially problematic, but perhaps I don't know enough about this, so can you tell me about
From what
that?
I can gather, now, I'm not an expert on bike lanes, but from what I can gather, this is a common practice, that bicyclists, ultimately, if you're a serious bicyclist, you move out anyways, whether there's a bike lane or not. And that it's probably going to be more confusing to drivers of vehicles than it will be the bicyclists. I'm assuming that if you're a serious bicyclist, you're going to follow the normal routines and move out into that lane. If you're not so serious of a bicyclist, you're probably going to go up to the intersection. You're probably going to push the walk button, and you're probably going to walk your bike or ride your bike on a walk cycle. I mean, only one time have I ridden on a on-street bike facility that was a little bit uncomfortable when I was in San Diego. They have a bike lane in Coronado Island that actually, you go in both directions in the middle of the road, which is uncomfortable if you're not, you got traffic coming by on both sides. It's kind of, but I'm assuming that those that are ride bicycles on a regular basis on the road are accustomed to being in close proximity to traffic.
You're probably right about that. However, I'm not sure the folks in the vehicles are accustomed to having that kind of activity going on. That would be my question and concern going forward, is the way this is configured
I mean, we would have signage.
in that side of the road.
We'd have signage. We possibly could be maybe coloring the road coloring the road in the center a different color to make people aware. I'm not going to say that it won't be confusing to people that are not accustomed to it, because it probably will be.
Yep.
I mean, we will have to make efforts to warn everybody as they're driving up the road, and we'll have to make, accommodations so that, mishaps don't occur.
Anybody else have any comments about that at this point?
Just one quick question, and like by warning people or drivers, are you talking about signage leading up to these intersections saying watch for bicyclists or watch for,
Signage is obviously one of the first things we look at, but, maybe we'd roughen the pavement up so that, you come into a place and you're woken up to the sign that you're going to see, or the pavement marking that's going to be on the road. There'll be pavement markings on the road. I mean, if you're paying attention as a driver, it's probably not going to be a shock to you. I guess it's all a matter of how distracted people are as they drive. I don't, that seems to be a major problem in general. But we'll follow the recommended advice from the agencies that are responsible for incorporating standards for this. I mean, this is not like something new. It may be new to Plainville, but it's not something new to the United States or even the world as a whole.
Madam Chair,
Go right ahead.
I've encountered this in Portland, Maine. I saw it 2 weeks ago in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm not going to lie, as somebody who doesn't encounter it a lot, you got to remind yourself that, hey, the bike lane's going to move, but everybody with Rhode Island and Maine plates seem to be adjusting to it just fine. You're seeing it in more and more cities, so I think it's probably a learning curve, but it's definitely not something that, if you're looking for it, it's there, you'll see it, and I definitely know, in bigger cities, you're going to see more bicyclists anyway, so it might just be a taking used to, but I have noticed it, and there's a learning curve to it.
Generally speaking, this is going to become a more familiar type of thing because of the state having a policy of complete streets. They do not fund projects that, one, don't at least consider it. And from what I can gather, they're pretty stringent in what you can discount. In other words, if we were to just say we considered it and we just discounted it because it's not practical, they would be try to emphasize why we didn't incorporate some of these things, and we would have to justify it, and the justification may be tough in many cases. I mean, in this particular one, if when the bike path that's a separated bike path that is going to come in the general proximity to this, so this is going to help link up to that. I mean, there may be even a possibility that this will be a direct link rather than an indirect link, depending on the actual route that's finally determined for the middle section.
Does anybody else have any comments about that at this time? Now, this is going to be reviewed somewhere by other agencies, is that correct? This isn't like as Robert said, it's not the final iteration of what's going to happen here. This is a proposal?
We, the town, will develop a concept plan. The concept plan will be reviewed by CROG, who's got their own experts. They've got a whole person or two people that's all they do is alternative transportation type things. They, in turn, have a consultant that comes in that reviews semi-final and final design prior to it being submitted to DOT. And DOT's got the option to do review. I don't know how extensive their review is, but I do know from the work on Town Line Road that CROG's review is fairly extensive.
Okay.
Couple.
Any other questions? Or Robert, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, there's very little parking on Whiting Street in that section as it is right now. Any of the parking that's there on a regular basis, and that's to a certain degree very infrequent, is in that section from Newton north, on the east side of the street. So we're not really taking away, any parking that's really been used, on that street to begin with. The other thing is because it's a wide street, there tends to be, speed picks up on wider streets. People feel comfortable. We feel that these types of changes will also create a traffic calming situation where people will not feel comfortable driving at the speeds they're currently driving at because of bike lanes and painted areas and not as comfortable a feeling that you're dealing with a 38-foot road and there's nobody parking on the side, so you feel comfortable driving faster. So I think this will have a whole host of benefits when it's completed as well.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for Robert or John? Okay, thank you. Thanks, John.
Next item I have is the sidewalk construction bid. On July 1st, 5 bids were received for the replacement of sidewalks along Laurel Court and sections of Tomlinson Avenue. The low bid was submitted by CMC Contractors, LLC of Greenwich. The next lowest bidder was submitted by William Layden Associates. The low bid that was submitted by CMC Construction was, I think, I didn't put that number here, but I have it in your information, was $129,100. The second low bid was by William Layden Construction, LLC of North Haven, in the amount of $177,825, and the engineer's estimate for the project was $200,000. Town staff contacted the company and requested that they review their figures given the discrepancy with the second low bidder. CMC confirmed that they were satisfied with their bid. Town staff then contacted their references and did not uncover any reason why CMC contractors could not fulfill the contract requirements. Town staff has determined that CMC contractors to be the lowest responsible bidder, recommending that they be awarded the sidewalk contract in the amount of $129,100. There is an item under new business regarding this recommendation, and we do have a person on staff who certainly will be out there doing inspection, pretty much anytime the contractor's out there doing work. So, but there is an item under new business. John did a lot of the legwork on this, so if you have any questions regarding this recommendation, he's here to answer any questions you may have as well.
Can I just ask one question? In the details, what was it? Why were they so much lower? Like, do we have an answer to that? Have we looked at that at all, John?
Yeah, we gave you a sheet that showed the items, and how they compared to the others, but I'll let John answer that question.
In conversations with the contractor, he emphasized that it's volume and that he's got a rather large company and he's got to keep people working. I do have reservations in regards to, how much attention we're gonna have to pay to him. But I couldn't find any, any data or any evidence that, he's defaulted on contracts before and he can't complete the work. He's gonna be providing the town, 2 bonds in the value of the contract, so, we don't really wanna do that kind of stuff.
Right, but still.
We've got those assurances, and considering it's sidewalk work, if the worst case happened and he left the job, we could, conjure up somebody to finish the job and then make claims against his bond or whatever else we need to do to make ourselves whole.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item I have is Brownfield's grant award on the former White Oak property. Late last month, the Department of Economic and Community Development announced that the town of Plainville was awarded a grant in the amount of $1,170,000 for funding under the Brownfield Municipal Grant Program. The grant would be used for cleaning up the contamination at 1 and 63 West Main Street for repurposing the former White Oak Corporation site into a mixed-use development consisting of medical office space, industrial condominiums, a community building, retail, housing, and parking. Plainville was only one of 23 towns to receive this funding, which is intended to put vacant properties back into productive use. Town staff has met with DECD representatives to work on the details for a financial assistance proposal that will outline the key terms of the grant funding as well as the conditions that the town will need to meet to access the funding. I want to thank Town Council for their leadership in moving forward with this redevelopment process and recognize Economic Development Director Cal Harburger and Lorero Engineering Associates of Plainville for putting together the grant application. It's a lot of legwork that we have to go from here to put everything in place, but it's certainly a big step forward with getting the funding to clean up the site from its previous use. Next item I have is the Valley Water updates, which involves a rate case and a land sale. At the May 3rd meeting of the Town Council, learned that the parent company of Valley Water, namely the New England Service Company, had entered into an agreement and plan of merger with Aquarian Water Company of Bridgeport. Valley Water also sent a letter to the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, otherwise known as PURA, requesting that their current application for a rate increase be temporarily suspended until such time as the merger is approved by the required regulatory agencies in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Valley Water also proposed that they initiate discussions among the parties and report back to PURA if a settlement is achievable with regards to the rate case. Since that time, Valley Water, Aquarian, the Office of Consumer Counsel, and I have held several meetings with regards to a potential settlement for the rate increase. As a result of these discussions, a settlement proposal has been submitted to the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority for their consideration. The settlement would reduce the proposed increase from an average of 36% to 21.6%. For the residential user that currently pays $30 per month to Valley Water, the increase will be reduced from $11.18 a month to $6.63 a month. Additionally, for the residential user that currently pays $40 a month, the increase will be reduced from $14.15 to $8.44. The cost for fire protection service, and that is paid for through the town budget, would also be reduced from an annual cost of $854,000. It was proposed originally, as it was proposed, from $854,000 to $764,000. This is a reduction of almost $90,000. Finally, Valley Water or Aquarian agreed to delay the increase of these rates until January 1st, 2022. The proposed settlement agreement now goes to PURA for their approval. It should be noted that the proposed settlement is contingent on PURA approving the acquisition of the Valley Water New England Service Company by Aquarian of Bridgeport. That deals with the rate case, and that'll be considered by PURA. And again, it was the Office of Consumer Counsel who represents the consumers, the ratepayers, that feels that that's the best that they can do. And if it went to a full, I guess, adjudication, there's a feeling that it would the increase could be significantly more than that. Last November, the town entered into a non-binding letter of intent with Valley Water Systems, Inc. to purchase 47.91 acres of property located on Ledge Road near Crescent Lake. The purchase amount was $325,000, contingent on a successful open space grant award from the state of Connecticut. If the grant is not successful, the purchase price would be $300,000. The deadline for the open space grant is September 30th, and the grant award is not expected to be announced until sometime close to the end of the year. According to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, towns can purchase the property after the September 30th application closing date and still be eligible for consideration for the open space grant. Valley Water is planning to utilize the proceeds from this sale to contribute to the construction of the water softening system, thus lowering the potential monetary impact to the Valley Water customers. Valley Water is requesting that the property be transferred in early October. To move forward on the purchase, the proposed purchase must be submitted for an 8-24 referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission. There is an item under new business that would make the referral to P&Z. It should be noted that the town has secured a commitment from a third party to contribute one half of the purchase price for this 47.91 acre parcel, which would limit Plainville's amount to no more than $150,000, and that's assuming we didn't get the open space grant, which I feel relatively comfortable we would be successful in receiving. The next item I have is vehicle disposal request and replacement purchase. Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds Dave Emery is requesting permission to dispose of 3 town vehicles at auction. These vehicles are one, a 1996 half-ton 4x4 Chevy pickup that has 143,000 miles on it, a 2000 3/4-ton 4x4 Chevy pickup that has 109,000 miles on it, and a 2005 Ford Crown Victoria that has 140,000 miles on it. All these vehicles have extensive body rot, which makes them unsafe to be on the road in their present condition. There is a motion under new business regarding this recommendation. It is not anticipated that the auction would result in any significant revenue to the town. Additionally, the fiscal year 22 capital improvement program includes monies to replace a 4-wheel drive utility body plow truck assigned to Buildings and Grounds. One of the trucks recommended for disposal was anticipated to last at least one more year. Its replacement was scheduled for fiscal year 23. The reason why I bring this up is that Dave Emery is requesting that the truck scheduled for replacement next year, which is a Ford 250 4x4 with plow and sander, be purchased this year and push back the replacement of the pickup truck 4x4 with utility body for next year, if you could follow all that. The state contract bid for the Ford truck with plow is $40,185 from Gangris Ford of Plainville. The amount budgeted in the current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 21, was $44,000. There is an item under new business that would authorize the purchase of the Ford 250 4x4 with plow and sander from Gangris Ford in the amount of $40,185.40. The other truck was actually going to be a little bit more expensive with the utility body. So that's the reason why it's going to come in a little bit under what was budgeted for the current fiscal year. Next item I have is Connecticut marijuana legislation discussion. SB 1201 was enacted during the June 21st special session, which legalizes adult use of cannabis. Among other things, the new law, A, creates a process for the erasure of previous marijuana-related convictions. B, establishes legal adult recreational use of cannabis by allowing individuals aged 21 or older to use, possess, or otherwise consume cannabis and cannabis products. C, and establishes new laws, regulations, and control of cannabis products. In general, the bill limits possession to 1.5 ounces of cannabis plant material and 5 ounces of such material in a locked container in a person's residence or locked vehicle glove box or trunk. In addition, beginning on July 1st, 2023, the bill allows any individual aged 21 or older to cultivate up to 3 mature and 3 immature cannabis plants in an individual's primary residence. There's a lot of other things in the bill as well. There are three major areas of the bill that I would like to discuss this evening, namely marijuana sales, marijuana growing facilities, and the regulation of cannabis use. First is marijuana sales. If an ordinance is enacted to prohibit marijuana sales in the municipalities, effective July 1st, 2021, if at least 10% of the municipality's electors petition for a vote to allow certain marijuana sales, it must be done at least 60 days before a regular election. If met, the municipality must hold a referendum to determine whether to allow, 1, the recreational sale of marijuana in the municipality, or 2, the sale of marijuana in one or more of the cannabis establishment license types. The bill does specify what specific language needs to be used if there is a referendum question. Currently, town staff is not aware of any residents circulating a petition under this provision. Certainly, the council hasn't taken any action to prohibit it to begin with, so one would seem to follow the other if necessary. The bill allows municipalities to amend their zoning regulations or local ordinances to take the following actions regarding cannabis establishments. A, prohibit them from opening. B, reasonably restrict their hours and signage. Or C, restrict their proximity to religious institutions, schools, charitable institutions, hospitals, veterans' homes, or certain military establishments. Until June 30th, 2024, the bill prohibits municipalities from granting zoning approval for more retailers or micro-cultivators than the number that would allow for one retailer and one micro-cultivator for every 25,000 municipal residents. That basically would limit, in Plainville, one retailer or one growing facility. With regards to growing facilities, the state will limit the number of cultivator licenses in Connecticut. Before an applicant can apply for such a license, they must provide evidence of several items, one of which is any necessary local zoning approval and permits for the cultivation facility, including all Department of Consumer Protection security requirements. And we're only really talking about indoor type of growing facilities. There's no outdoor growing facilities allowed under the bill, other than probably somebody locally, the three plants you can grow yourself in your backyard or in your basement. Regulation of cannabis use, effective October 1st, 2021. Existing law allows municipalities to regulate activities deemed harmful to public health, including smoking on municipally owned property. The bill broadens this to include property that a municipality controls but does not own. It specifies that this regulatory authority applies to 1, smoking tobacco or cannabis, including cannabis e-cigarettes use, and 2, other types of cannabis use or consumption. It allows municipalities to ban cannabis smoking, including e-cigarettes use, at outdoor sections of restaurants. Through regulations, municipalities may set fines for violations up to $50 for individuals or $1,000 for businesses. The Plainville zoning regulations currently allow for medical marijuana dispensing and growing facilities. The purpose of this regulation is to prevent a concentration of regulated medical marijuana dispensing and production facilities or establishments, which may adversely affect existing and potential neighborhoods, property values, retail, wholesale, and industrial trade, schools, public buildings, public parks, private and public recreation areas, and places of worship. Based on the current regulations that are in place and the setback requirements to residential use, which is 100 feet, schools, public buildings, public parks, public and private recreation areas, and places of worship, where it requires 500 feet, any sales of medical marijuana pretty much is limited to the Connecticut Commons area. It is anticipated that the Planning and Zoning Commission will consider changes to their regulations based on the new legislation that was passed during this special session. Questions to be considered by the Town Council at this time, and not necessarily this evening, but at least they perhaps give some direction to town staff with additional information you may want from us, are: 1, should the Town Council consider an ordinance prohibiting cannabis sale in Plainville? And 2, consider an ordinance prohibiting marijuana use in municipally owned property, i.e. town parks, or ban its use at outdoor sections of restaurants. And again, I'm not asking for any decisions this evening, just if you want us to gather some information, and, and bring forward it at future meetings of the town council, we certainly would be, obviously willing to do so.
I would ask, and of course, with the, the consideration of my fellow council persons here, that we have maybe a special work session to talk about some of these things. This is a lot of change, and we're asked to do regulation changes and things of that nature. I have some other questions about the impacts of doing this. I know the state has given its blessing, but we have a little bit of local control over what we can think would be a good thing for our town. So are you okay with having a special work session just to talk about this at some point, perhaps in August, at our August meeting?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Are you okay with that down here? Maybe we could put it at the beginning of our August August meeting, and then, and in the meanwhile, send off some questions to you that we might need some more information about. That comes to thought. So,
Okay.
okay,
All right.
thanks.
Will
Thank
do.
you.
And Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
should we send those questions directly to staff with CC to the town council?
Well, if you could
Helpful.
copy the council, if you're going to send them to Rob.
I think it'd be helpful.
copy.
That way we all know
We're not-
what's being asked.
Correct, and we're
it'd
not
be
redundant
helpful
in
to
some of
everybody.
those things. So, yeah, that would be
Okay,
great. Thank you.
All right. Next item I have is a COVID-19 update, relatively brief. In a special session held last Wednesday, State House of Representatives and Senate both approved extending the governor's emergency powers until September 30th, 2021 for 11 executive orders. During the debate on this extension, it was pointed out that the positivity rate has jumped to 1.28%, its highest level since late May. Although I was on a conference call this morning with our regional health director, and we're in a regional health district with Southington and Middlefield, and, in Plainville. Our numbers are still very low in the region, and in fact, half of the people who have tested positive were from one family, so it's a relatively small number. And I'm not sure if that family is in Plainville, Southington, or Middlefield. Shane Lockwood, the health director, the numbers at this time last year were higher than they are today. The new variant is probably accounts to about 60% of the people who are infected right now. So there's a lot of moving parts, but at this point in time, he doesn't feel that there's anything of great significance. The last issue is whether students are going to have to wear masks in school. There's a couple different recommendations that are out there. It's our understanding that the state health department is going to make a recommendation any day now with regards to how that's going to be handled. I don't believe that the local boards of education at this point in time have the authority to deviate from what's ever recommended at the state level.
Certainly a hotly discussed topic by many.
Yes, it is. Next item I have is the fiscal year 21 preliminary budget results. Preliminary information from the finance director, who's Rob Buden, is that revenues will exceed budget expectations by at least $1.5 million this year. A good portion of this is due to the building permit fees for the AmeriCole project on Northwest Drive. He also indicated that he expects the general government expenses will come in under budget by about $400,000 from what was budgeted overall. Finally, Superintendent of Schools Steve LePage has informed town staff that the education budget will come in approximately $750,000 less than was budgeted for fiscal year 21. Based on these amounts, the results for the fiscal year 21 budget will increase the unassigned fund balance by approximately $2.65 million. Please note that this increase is somewhat offset by the amount of unassigned fund balance being utilized in the fiscal year 22 budget towards the mill rate, which was $600,000, and $869,000 to support the capital improvement budget. Those two numbers together is about $1.47 million, bringing the preliminary net total for June 2022, which is at the end of this fiscal year that we're currently in, being an overall estimated increase of about $1.1 million. So we've covered the amount of unassigned fund balance that we used in the current fiscal budget with some of the savings that we had, or some of the overages that we had last year. In conversations with Steve LePage and Sam Adlerstein, they've suggested that $250,000 of the amount returned from the fiscal year 21 education budget be used to reduce 3 future CIP requests already in the pipeline. This includes repointing of the brick at the high school, $100,000, upgrades to the access and intrusion at all schools, $50,000, and to add an additional $100,000 to the turf field fund. That's how they come up with the $250,000. If the town council's wishes to proceed with these suggestions or others, at least as far as that suggestion, town staff can put together a plan for moving forward. I know I had some conversation with some council members about the concept. These are things that would be taken off the future CIP, so it keeps pressure off of, next year and the year after. There's a feeling, for example, that the repointing of the brick, we've got $100,000 already funded. They were going to go out and put a contract out for that. The feeling is that they could do it all at one time. There may be some cost savings, having $200,000 rather than split up into $200,000 projects. So, and that is work that needs to get done. So, and the other items are one-time expenses against, what you considered one-time revenues. So, again, not asking for any decisions this evening, just throwing that out there. Certainly can, let me know if that's something you want to consider, and, we can bring it forward at the August meeting or a future meeting if necessary. All right. That's all I have for the moment, and I'll turn it over to Matt. You have any happenings?
I have 2 items for happenings. I'll try and be brief. The first is that taxes that are due July 1, 2021, you would have received these bills at the end of June. The last day to pay is August 2nd of 2021. The other that I have is Senior Center, as always, has a lot of exciting happenings. I'll highlight a few. The health fair is Tuesday, July 20th from 9:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Again, that's at the Senior Center. There's free admission. It's a walkthrough. You have an opportunity to meet with senior provider specialists, get health screenings. There's a raffle prize. You can receive a File of Life packet. For more information, you can contact the Senior Center to register at 860-747-5728. Outdoor adventures are beginning to kick off, and information is available for the Senior Center at that same number if anyone is interested. Another exciting opportunity for this month is a food label reading 101. I can personally speak to this challenge from this weekend. Unlock the mysteries of reading your food. You can decipher nutrition facts, ingredient lists, questionable claims on boxes, jars, and cans. It's going to be presented by Miles Everett, registered dietitian and nurse educator. For more information and to register, contact the Senior Center, and again, that's at 860-747-5728. Other exciting events will be posted online. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Are most of the programs at the Senior Center now back in full operation, or are there any limitations to some of the things they'd offered since COVID changed much of what they had to do?
Yeah, the lunch program is not back.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, the CRT, which provides the meals, is not delivering them yet, so that's not back yet. There is some limited recreational use, like pool is back, but not I don't think they're opening up the competitions till September. So you can play pool there, but not have a big crowd there for. And I believe they're allowing setback, back in so people can play cards. Where that was a recent addition, but pretty much. And I don't think the snack area is open. But most everything is.
Okay.
One clarification on the taxes that, Matt, you can certainly pay your taxes after August 2nd, but up until August 2nd, you can pay your taxes without any delinquent interest. So usually it would be August 1st, but August 1st is on a Sunday, so that's why it's August 2nd, which is a Monday.
Pardon me.
All right, thank you both for your report. Does anybody have any questions or comments for either Robert or Matt with their reports tonight? There was a lot here. I know that we're going to reconvene to talk about the marijuana legislation and perhaps talk about the fund balance issues with the monies that we have at year end. Robert, those are unaudited numbers, is that correct?
That's correct.
But we're very confident that those will probably remain as they are?
Yes, yes. In fact, according to Rob, he's a little conservative on those numbers as well.
Okay.
So the tendency would be that they'd be a little bit better as opposed to a little bit worse.
Okay. All right.
I do know that on our self-insurance deficit that we've talked about last year, that even that has moved in a more positive direction than earlier, and we'll give an update on that as well at a future meeting. So things are looking well from our budget standpoint.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no further questions, we'll move into the next portion of our meeting, which is the public comment section. During this time, we welcome the public to come to this podium. Please state your name and address, and you will be given one opportunity to speak to the council for 3 minutes. Does anybody wish to speak to the council? Joanne, you had your hand up. You can go first.
I never know when I have to go home.
Okay.
Getting old, getting old. Oh,
She needs to turn the mic on.
yeah. Joanne Edmond, 166 West Main Street. Before I forget tonight, I wouldn't forget, but I won't. This really is a public address, but I guess you're going to take my time anyway, and it's almost over. 3 minutes goes like that. What I'd like to say tonight is that I don't think you've made a decision yet about the police department, have you?
Be specific.
For the selection of, what I'm trying to say is that recently it was recommended that you go in-house. And I want you to know that I feel the same way. I think everything is going along beautifully over there. You got a great department. All the guys are super. And you got 2 head people over there right now that have trained under the great one. And actually they were there before him, I think. I don't know. But I would say go in-house. Now, the second thing is, before my 3 minutes are over, I opposed alignment C of the trail and the project number 1 that starts off of Town Line Road. And there's several issues beyond what it's going to cost the taxpayer in this town. I'm really concerned the budget bottom line cost and the perceived trouble that this stupid trail is going to cause. Beyond the maintenance, repair, police patrol, please, have you thought of what happens? This really, it came to me the other day. What happens if you don't have facilities along the trail? What happens to, say, the pee and the poop? You're going to have, what, garbage in the woods? Or if you do put up shanty shacks along the way, who's going to pay for them? I don't want to pay for them. And with my remaining couple, I mean, it's something to really think about. I don't think the taxpayers in this town should pay for the little shanties along the way. And I don't think that anybody should have to pay to pick up all the debris in the woods. Think about it. All the bad papers and things. And I had one more thing I wanted to say.
Is it quick?
If I could. Please, be ever vigilant about what's happening in Washington. You're going to lose the American way if you don't really pay attention. You really have to pay attention. This Marxism is sweeping. I thought it was creeping, but it's sweeping across this great land. And you must be ever vigilant. You must fight back and you must push back. And that's the word out there. And if you don't, you're going to lose this wonderful way of American life that we have today. Trust me.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm old, but I don't want to die. I want to be here and fight the good fight. And I'm trying. With all my heart, I'm trying. Because I fear that we're going to be lost if this cesspool in Washington of rats get their way.
She's had her 3 minutes, so I'd like to speak. If there was a 3
Thank you for the
Excuse me,
extra
Joanne.
time. I thought it was worth it.
Okay, you have had your time, and I also have a statement that I'm going to read before you have your opportunity, if you don't mind. We received an email from a resident. I'm going to not read the entire thing, but I will go ahead and read the email we received, which was requested to be shared during this time of our meeting. It was from Catherine Labella. She's a property owner at 50 Pierce Street. She's opposed to the proposed alignment C of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail or any other alignment having a negative impact on Plainville residents. The recent DOT presentation regarding Phase 1 of the proposed trail through Plainville heightened my fear that DOT will bulldoze its way through the project, ignoring requests of property owners bordering the trail. As you know, many property owners were not notified of the alignment until the end of the gap closure study process. Plainville residents fighting to protect their property were relieved to see alternative routes plans put into the final study. DOT representatives also made it clear that eminent domain will be used if property owners do not accept the monetary value that the agency determines. Earlier in the process, the council chair pledged to Plainville citizens that the council would not support the use of eminent domain to take property. You are elected by Plainville citizens and now face the challenge of honoring your pledge to residents. This will be a difficult challenge because of DOT's authority to take property in this manner. I urge you to honor your pledge. Do not vote for Phase 1 until such time as you understand its full impact upon property owners. There is more to this, but I will conclude by saying I respectfully request that this be read during the public comment section of the agenda and filed with the town clerk minutes. This is available for public inspection. It will be part of our minutes. We hold on to this, and everybody on the council also received a copy of it. So I read most of it, but you get the sense of what Catherine Labella was trying to convey to us. All right, we will continue on with our public comment section. Would you like to stand up and speak, please? Please state your name and address.
My name is Mary McGinley Kuchar. I live at 48 Milford Street in Plainville, Connecticut. I have 3 things. Number 1, are we the only town, is everybody else in the state stupid and they want the trail in their town? And Plainville's just so much smarter. I think we need the trail, number 1. Number 2, instead of the Board of Education giving all their money back, how about you put a solid wood door in the swimming area? So there's no chance for glass and for cameras to be put in there ever again. And then number 3, I walk by the schools in this town all the time. We have spent millions of dollars on these schools, and I'm all for education. My mom was a teacher in this town. Our grounds look horrible. Instead of giving all that money back, how about we haven't put mulch in one of these schools in I don't know how long. We haven't weeded. It's really embarrassing. You have multi-million-dollar schools, and we have grounds that look like garbage. So instead of taking all that money back, maybe the Board of Ed side should do something to upkeep that. Even if it's something that's simple, just to keep it nice. It doesn't have to be fancy, but nice and neat. It'd be a better use of the money than giving it all back. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak that hasn't done so? Mr. Getterman.
Benjamin Getterman, 5 Dickman Road. Before I get into the main reasons why I'm here tonight, I just have 2 quick comments. First of all, I'd like to offer my heartfelt condolences to the families that lost their boys today. And secondly, it's completely baffling to me that the town council and the town manager are even considering hiring someone as chief, that someone had just settled a sexual harassment and discrimination lawsuit. We have the ideal in-house candidate who has been doing an amazing job since October. The fact that he has not been hired 3 months ago is just disgusting to me. Okay, and now for the main reasons I'm here. I'm here to educate the council a little bit, as well as the public, about the apportionment complaint that has been filed against the Plainville Blue Dolphins Parents Association. The bylaws for the Parents Association, which I helped write and were adopted in July of 2014, clearly state under Article 3 membership qualifications, all parents or guardians whose children are registered with the Plainville Blue Dolphins swim program shall be recognized as members of the Plainville Blue Dolphins Parents Association. Now, the apportionment complaint clearly states under Section 13, the defendant apportionment plaintiff denies that it was negligent, but if the plaintiff suffered damages as alleged, then said damages or losses were caused in whole or in part by the negligence of the apportionment defendant, the Plainville Blue Dolphins Swim Team Parents Association, its board of directors, officers, agents, servants, and or members. Get that? Members. So the repeated statement that the parents of the victims are not being sued is completely false. By allowing this to be filed in the first place and allowing this to continue, the victims have a clear path to sue every family that had a child on the swim team since September 2017, including families of the victims, all of which are Plainville residents. Good luck getting volunteers in this town if this is how they're going to be treated. And sadly, in my mind, this apportionment suit isn't even the worst thing this town has done, or actually has not done, since Mr. Fasold's arrest. The dozens of victims that were filmed at the high school were all either registered swimmers on the town's swim team or employees of the town. At no time since March 6, 2020, has the town offered outside counseling to help the victims deal with the trauma of this. With any other life-altering event, like a tragic loss of life, as we've seen today, of a school-age child, the town has brought in outside counseling for every single child in town. Yes, this is a different situation, but the lifelong trauma that these girls will be dealing with isn't that much different. The town had contact information for the entire swim team and employees and never offered these services. To turn a blind eye is just unconscionable. I think it's time for some serious changes around here.
Does anybody else wish to speak that hasn't done so?
Zach Ferguson, 40 Atherton Terrace. So since I've been attending these town hall meetings and to shed a lot of light on the Fasold child pornography case, I've been reached out to by a large amount of people to support who have been directly and or indirectly involved in the case. However, the other thing that I've been forced to do is explain what actually happened, which just goes to show how well this case is being swept under the rug. So it's time I wanted to kind of better explain what happened and coincidentally what's not happening now because of it. The town of Plainville had a youth swim program called the Plainville Blue Dolphins, and it consisted of children ages 4 to 18. It was run by Plainville Recreation Department and an aquatic director, both of which were composed of town employees. The program took place at Plainville High School, a town facility that supplied both the pool and locker rooms required to run this program. Additionally, there is Plainville Blue Dolphins Parents Association, made up of volunteers of the parents of the children in the program. While these parents weren't town employees, they did answer to one, the aquatic director, Ms. Kim Crowley. The Parents Association purpose was to fundraise the program, which allowed them to provide kids with awards and even give scholarship to senior swimmers. As a parent of the swimmers, Kyle Fasold became involved in the program. He volunteered, attended every practice, interacted with the children, and eventually became the vice president of the Volunteers Association. On March of 2020, he was arrested by Homeland Security for distribution of child pornography. He had used his position to record children in the locker rooms as well as in his own home. He abused his role and victimized these children for years. So here we are, a year and a half later, and still nothing has been done. The victims have filed numerous lawsuits to the town regarding this case, one of which states that Kim Crowley, again the aquatic director, a town employee, had knowledge of suspicious behavior on regards of Fasold and chose to do nothing about it. To think that if the right actions were taken, countless victims may have been saved. These lawsuits are about town accountability, and the town's response is to delay, prolong this process, and let Kim Crowley retire. Take a moment to think of the victims, children who not only had been robbed of their innocence, lost their ability to trust, and lost their love of their sport, and have also had to experience an extreme trauma that no child should have the burden to deal with. This has taken an insane psychological toll on these children and will negatively impact their futures. Kyle Fasold is the man who did this to them, but the town failed them too. These victims have to go to the crime. Some of these victims have to go to the crime scene every day because it just so happens to be their school. So yet again, here we are, a year and a half later, no support system for these victims, no outreach, no resources, no support from the town, just to prolong and delay the conclusion that these people have been waiting for. This town owes these victims to give them the justice for what they failed to do to protect them. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. My name is Jill Berry, and I live at 199 Cavan Line, Glastonbury. I am here tonight to show my strong support for Mark Catania for the position of Plainville Police Chief. I am a former member of the Glastonbury Town Council. I served from 2011 to 2018, serving as vice chair in 2017-2018 when I resigned to serve as state representative for the town, a position I currently hold. I understand the hard decision you have before you, and in many ways do not envy you, having gone through similar processes in the past. However, saying that, I have a sense of what you, as the town council, are looking for in a police chief. I have known and worked with Mark for over 10 years, first in my capacity as a town council member and now as state representative. His work is commendable, his reputation highly regarded, and his character admirable. He fits the description of an ideal candidate in my mind, not only on paper, but through the interactions I have had with him over the years. As an elected official for the past 10 years, I know how important it is to have a good relationship and communication with town officials. Mark is always there, easy to talk to, and always advocating for his department, which translates to the best thing for a community. Your neighborhoods, your schools, your town. He is always at community events and takes pride in the community he works for, and therefore our community benefits from his presence. At a time when the police profession is scrutinized, I say with certainty that Mark exemplifies all the good in policing and is a shining example of how to do it right. He is a positive role model for the younger generation and highly respected by his peers. Despite the negativity, I am proud and astonished to say that the residents of Glastonbury support, praise, and 100% back our police department. Not because of their actions in the past year, but instead because of their actions over the last 25 years. They have earned the respect and admiration of the town's residents through the years, and today it is at an all-time high. The police department prides itself in community policing, strong relationships with town officials and residents, engaging in new initiatives, and most of all, striving and succeeding at being a highly respected team in town. This is largely due to the leadership of Mark Catania. There is a piece of me that finds it hard to stand here tonight, though I am confident that the town of Plainville will benefit from the strong, honest, reputable leadership of Mark. It will mean that Glastonbury will lose one of its finest leaders. That being said, I am proud and honored to be here tonight to support my good friend and colleague, Mark Catania. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Mr. Frangos, your turn.
Lou Frangos, 10 Fairbank Street. First of all, I'd like to thank the town council for the flag location. Well placed. Number two, Will there be a public hearing at the August Town Council meeting regarding marijuana legislation and proposals regarding Plainville? Will that be open to the public after your meeting?
At this point in time, I would say. Thanks. At this point in time, I'm not sure a public hearing will be in order, but we are going to have a work session where the council is going to talk about some of these
that's why I
topics,
asked.
at which the public can certainly listen to, but not participate particularly at that moment. But you're welcome to listen.
Fine, thank you.
Okay?
Right, and the final is the Broad Street Bike Trail. The changes, there'll be changes made as time goes by, as you had mentioned. These proposals will be constantly presented at future town council meetings. And along with that, is there a possibility that we can get copies of those proposals? The only reason I'm asking that is I can't digest, I'm looking at the screen and the picture's this and the picture's that, and I just can't digest it quick enough. I don't want to make this a work project, make work project, but I can get it, copies? Fine. And the only thing I'm going to mention regarding Broad Street, because I live up that area, as people know, off of Bohemia, Fairbanks off of Bohemia onto Broad. That's at times, if you're on Broad Street, that traffic is moving. And that's one of the main concerns I have. And in fact, you see it on Bohemia Street, and that's a small strip. It's almost like a little drag strip. But Bohemia, and I saw like that, you move over to the curb, or entrance that was on the, and if somebody wasn't paying attention, anyway, that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Anybody else? Yes, sir?
David Spencer, 127 Milford Street Extension. It's been a while, and glad to see you all, actually. I mean, I know we've been on different sides of issues over the years, and I think even though I realize probably all of us, we want the best for Plainville, and that's kind of our uniting spirit behind us. I know it's a couple of months in the past, but I'd like to talk about the budget vote. 4% of the registered voters came out to vote for that. I feel that's an embarrassment. I don't know why there isn't some kind of effort to get more people out. In fact, according to the Plainville Citizen, quoting Kathy, I don't know if it's a quote because it wasn't in quotes, but it says the idea was that the voters think the budget successfully balances maintaining services and keeping spending down. I don't know how you can claim that when only 3% of the actual registered voters approve these budgets. And I think the proof of that is a few years ago, somehow we got, 6 or 7% of the voters out there, and the Board of Education budget was voted down. So that's kind of an embarrassment. But the main reason I wanted to come here was it's concerning Norton Park, and actually I wanted to advocate for a larger space cleared around that magnificent old oak tree. But I went, having visited the park, somebody has beaten me to it, and you've already cleared a larger area around that. There's still a concrete slab there that's kind of ugly and, just detracts from it. So I'm hoping there's some kind of plan to get a machine or a jackhammer in there and, get rid of that. I mean, that could be a real showcase the towns of Granby and Simsbury have highlighted some of their ancient old trees. And we got something very similar. That's a very special tree. That could be the highlight of the park. It could be a centerpiece. I don't know what the plans are. Can I? How is there a way I can find out or whatever? I know the area's been cleared around that. It's a nice, good-sized area.
We can check on that and get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can check on it.
You probably already know this, but I wouldn't plant any grass there until mid-September because it just doesn't take in the heat of the summer.
Okay.
Also, there's been quite a bit of tree cutting over there. How is it determined? Who determines what trees to cut down? Is there some kind of a standard? I mean, I checked out the stumps, and some of them, it did appear that they must have had a lot of heartwood rot, so that was probably a good idea to get them down. But there was a couple that, the trunks seemed fine, so I don't know what the standard is. I mean, I like to keep as many as I could, but if they become dangerous with people over there, obviously they have to be taken down. And there was a nice a black locust in the parking lot of the library on the I guess the east side as you would be leaving the parking lot. Personally, I always admired it because it was a huge tree for that species of tree, and I drive through and it's gone. I imagine just the location and the size made it be, taken down, made it maybe necessary to take it down, but is there, I don't know, who determines this stuff?
Well, we have a buildings and grounds crew that's
Okay.
that looks over our parks and takes care of them and things of that nature. So I'm sure there's a program that they have the trees looked at, not particularly necessarily even just by them, but maybe an arborist comes in and gives advice as to which ones are in jeopardy and which ones are okay. So there is a plan. We certainly don't want to have trees that are of a danger to anybody or anything in the park. So I can ask further about that, but I would expect that's the case.
Okay, well, thank you for pruning out the deadwood in that magnificent
Sure.
old white oak. That was a huge limb that they cut off, and it's kind of open to the weather. I don't know if they do the tree paint on them anymore, and it's going to take the tree years and years to heal over that. And I would hate to see any kind of rock get into that tree. So, I mean, as long as I'm in town, I'll be looking at it all the time. But hopefully other people will inspect it. But, I mean, that could be a treasure. That could be a special area. You could highlight it. I mean, people go to Granby and Simsbury to see those big trees, and maybe they'll come to Plainville to see ours.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Yes, sir?
My name is Edwin Hollenbeck, 44 Hilltop Road. I would like to just state my support for the two previous Plainville citizens that stood up here and made statements in regards to the Blue Dolphin swim team. They're brave and they deserve our support, not just myself as a citizen and as somebody in this town, but I think the town should support them as well. And I just want to ask what anyone in this town, on the town council, the town manager, anyone who's responsible for being part of this town or leadership in this town, what have you done to support them? It's a year and a half later and we're still up here having to ask you, beg you for any level of support after we were given such heartfelt support from the police and the meetings we had with them immediately after. It just feels weird that nothing has happened since then. And the excess budget from the school, it could go to security, like someone else said. It could go to, $250,000. How many salaries is of that, of counselors that should be at the school for these children, or anything to give them some level of support. So I ask again, what support have you given to the families, the parents, the victims of this crime that happened on town facilities and in our town?
I can't answer that because I don't have
I
that
understand.
information. I'm sorry. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? Yes?
Dave Albert, Hollyberry Lane. I had a 2-page thing I was going to write, tell you guys about the trail, but just from what I've heard, you guys need to make this right with these kids. You really do. I mean, I've been in this town 60 years. I've never seen anything as bad as this. It's awful. Make it right. Thanks. I wanted to talk about Norton Park. The paving that's in some spots is well past its prime. And there's water that accumulates after rainstorms, and there's a lot of walkers. I know I'm one of them that go down there. And I don't know if there's any plans to fix some of the pavement that's well past its prime and help reduce some of the water near one of the parking lots. It accumulates, and you can't even walk. You have to walk into the parking lot to get around it. And in the winter, what happens is if you get more than 6 inches of snow, a lot of those walkers have to go out onto the street over by Castle Apartment, the old Castle Apartments, and there's traffic going by, and the town either needs to pave the gravel path, which they probably can't do because it's gravel, or maybe think of putting pavement in there so that people can walk on it rather than in the road. And I know, I mean, there's a bunch, you wouldn't believe how many people walk down there in the winter and even in the summer, but.
Dave, can I just stop you for one quick
yeah,
second?
sure.
You mentioned a parking lot. We did just pave a large area of a parking lot.
Yeah, it's right
at
in
the
front
park.
of that.
Which one are you speaking about?
The one that you just paved over by the pool. What happened?
pool.
Yeah, what happens is there's a mile path that's kind of spiked out for people to walk. And what happens is
Right.
there's another path inside of that parking lot. There's another tar road.
Yeah.
And that's where people walk, but that gets completely flooded whenever you get over a half inch to an inch of rain, and especially in the winter, when you get the thawing, that really floods. So I don't know if you have any plans to fix that, but that and the portion over by the old lavatory, the old men's and women's room is really in sad shape. I mean, looks like it's been repaired a lot, but it needs new paving. And I was hoping you'd put it in your budget for next time. And lastly, but not least, when you buy that property over in Crescent Lake, what does the town plan to do with it? Is it just going to keep it as is?
Right.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I would
Yes.
That was my answer I was hoping for. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Yes?
Sue Lacombe, 204 West Main Street. I didn't come here tonight with the intent of saying anything, but just providing support to the Plainville Blue Dolphins, kids, families, victims, past volunteers. I was part of the Plainville Blue Dolphins Parent Advisory Council. My kids both swam on it. The experience they had was amazing. We are a small town. When we went and represented Plainville, we were amazing. You don't know how many kids qualified for states from our town. The memories that were swiped, and all the possibilities that were taken away from the children in the past year and a half, and nothing is being done. I know you can't say anything, and I respect you not saying anything, as I'm nervous in saying something that I might say something wrong, but we need to do something for the kids, and we need to prevent it from happening again. We want to have committees for trees and parks, which is great. That's all parks. It helps the community, but what can we do for the security of our children, not only at the high school, but in the parks? We have to do something. Just thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? Okay, if there are no others, thank you for your comments. I will close the public comment section at this time. Moving on with the agenda, there is no old business, so we are now in the new business section of our meeting. We have a few motions to make, so item number 1, please.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to award bid 2022-01E sidewalk construction to CMC Contractors, Inc. of Greenwich, Connecticut in the amount of $126,975. I thought you said 129, Robert? Is this amount incorrect?
Excuse me, Joanne. I'm sorry. I know, yep.
I would use the 126 on.
Okay, all right. My apologies. Here you go, 126,975.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 2.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the disposal of vehicles is listed in Buildings and Grounds request dated July 12, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 3, please.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to award bid 2022-03 four-wheel drive pickup with plow to Jangris Ford LLC of Plainville, Connecticut under State of Connecticut Contract 19 PSX 0161 in the amount of $40,185.40.
Second that motion, Madam Chair.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 4,
Madam Chair?
go ahead.
Motion to submit an 824 referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission for acquisition from Valley Water Systems of a parcel of land located at Zero Ledge Road consisting of 47.91 acres of land.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? It is really 0.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, just to, wanted to reiterate that it is a beautiful area up there, and I'm very glad that we are taking this step of acquiring it as a town. There may not have been much of a chance for development because it's kind of rough terrain in some ways, but you never know. And the fact that it will now be ours, hopefully in perpetuity, I think is a very positive step, and I'm glad we're following that.
I think the 0 refers to the fact it doesn't have a number.
Okay. Just curious.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is a magnificent piece of property. Some of us took a hike up there last fall or so, or was it the spring?
September, yeah.
Yeah. And it is remarkable, and it would be wonderful to have it and hold it and not do anything with it, just leave it in its perfect state. So I agree, Rosemary. Okay, any other comments on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the tax refunds is listed on the addendum.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we took care of all that. Thank you for your help with that. Item number 12, other discussions of interest. Mr. Lee, do you have anything else to bring to us tonight? Okay, anybody else have anything that they would like to offer up?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Motion to move into executive session for a personnel matter.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.